got her wrist so much easier. Are you track how many?
Thank you. Last two. What's that? Hot? Oh, it's cold outside. Uh-oh, something fell off the wall. It was hard. That was terrible. Did I put it on the floor?
I want to see you try to get that thing back up there.
No, please.
They're on the, hey, Jill, they're on the refrigerator in here.
Oh, okay.
I contacted Claire to let her know, to see if there was some other tape or different tape or something that she could use. I was gonna try to put them back up on the stage. Put them back up on the stage.
They're not going to be in House
Yeah, we can pay them.
And so, a lot of them use the drug.
Oh.
So I did bring you one, but it's all punch. To go in. How are you, Chrissy?
What's that about?
I'm glad you brought it because I got your new page A through. Already 3 whole punches and ready to go. Fabulous. So please you can.
Your computer. Oh, no, his name is right, but yeah, the school's wrong.
I just have to see that thought.
I think his kid is my kid.
Now, is this still just $8 here?
Yeah, if you, did you pay your password? Yes.
Hey, Sherry. What? Come up with
Well, it is, but our holiday, I mean, I looked at that twice. I could still have that, but I looked at, I counted, Hey, so that's a man, right? Excuse me, I gotta go back and put. That would have to be the just didn't roll call. I mean, call the order.
It's good, they're researchers, so they're getting researchers. I'm not sure about mama.
Well, I know you're sure about mama.
I mean, anyway.
No, you're fine.
But anyway, so I've requested a video that we have requested to the university. She was not coming to see that's actually good. But anyway, we're handling it. And then she wants to have like
Yeah, I
we're
remember
gonna do
that for
that
that.
5th grade every year. So we are addressing that.
That makes sense, I don't do it every year.
Yeah.
You can't do that every year.
No. We don't
She
do
don't
it.
do it for that.
Yeah. It's just picking up stuff.
It would be different though. I mean,
I can't talk to it.
I'm just trying to get it there.
I have to.
I mean, I'm not. Okay, so can we?
Yes, I have.
Well, she surely she knows the truth.
I'll give Miss Bush the council in there. Okay. Approach it.
They're different, you know, they're more like,
I need to sit down and talk
I'm more
about it.
luxurious.
Well, that's the thing, they show movies on, they've got that, you know, it's totally different.
Let me know if I can.
Come do some counseling, you wanna?
You know, I might use it for a job. I can't work with somebody. They got a school-based therapist too. I say, dang on it. I always want to do that too. I can't. We contract with them.
Okay.
Trust me. I was their job for the last 2 years.
Tiffany's gonna be late. Sailor Joe, you gotta leave early, but he'll be here on time.
Well, we ain't changing nothing.
You're so funny.
We're not, because a lot of people, everybody got stuff to do.
I know. I miss.
Take precedence over nobody's stuff. I miss my mom's whole birthday dinner. Like to be home, eat dinner on time.
My best friend.
I know, his mother like that.
Right now, they're
So, right. So we ain't vote. I ain't vote, but I ain't. Do what y'all do.
Do we have anyone there? Joe Wingate's not going to be here. Well,
You must got a game.
Well, it's here on top. I'm here on top. Gable has
She went to go fix that.
We're going to do that. Okay, that makes sense. We'd like to convene the work session. We have some members who will be coming in probably a little bit late from their jobs. First of all, studying the athletic trainers, the situation there. See if we have questions. Dr. McDade, you had a recommendation for your committee. Would you want to briefly state that, and then we'll see what other groups might have questions.
Thank you, Chairman Highlander. We had a convened a committee of 6 people, including myself, that went through the proposals. It was unanimously decided that Erlanger was the best fit for our system. So just at the board meeting, I will recommend that Erlanger be the choice for the board.
Thanks, sir. We have several, Dr. Smith is here, I believe, representing Erlanger. Anyone else with you, sir?
Yeah, we got a bunch of people, Dr.
Okay.
Horses, Mr. Spiegel's on his way.
Okay. We have, Center for Sports Medicine here. Is API here? Or Benchmark? Benchmark is here. Okay. CHIS, are they here? They're here as well. Okay. Thank you. There are a couple of questions that I had reading RFPs. One was the answer that in all my years coaching, and I've dealt with several of these people individually, and they all do a wonderful job. I think Dr. Smith may not remember it, but he took care of me many years ago. Did a good job. But I've gone to several of them, and my student athletes have gone to several. They all do a wonderful job. The question I have was one that I read when reading it was, the availability of trainers at all practices. And according to the RFP that I read from Erlanger, and Erlanger is, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. McDade, they're $5 cheaper than per athlete than the others.
We're $30, I don't know what everybody else.
Right, yeah, I'm sorry, it's Dr. McDade, I didn't mean. And I think the other's 35, is that right, Dr. McDade? Uh-huh, yeah, okay. And so, but the biggest question that I personally had, and others may have other questions, is the, where Erlanger said they would be available by beeper, for all practices.
Well,
And,
yeah.
just a second, the others had said that they would be on the grounds for all practices. Dr. Smith, you want to address that?
Sure. We'll have a trainer there, you know, at the complex, on the football field or whatever. I think the point was one trainer can't be at every practice. So if a trainer's covering football in the fall, he'll be available to go over to the girls' softball field or to the soccer field or whatever. He'll be on the premises.
Okay, and I looked over the contract law. I was real concerned when he says they will be available by.
No, they will actually be at the school every day.
Okay.
We'll have one trainer per school.
And they will be transported to Erlanger Hospital in case of an emergency or an injury.
Or wherever, you know, the family may want to go. We're not, this is not saying that everybody has to go to an Erlanger physician or our emergency room or whatever. We obviously hope they do, but that is totally the athlete and the family's choice.
That was in the RFP that I read. It said they would be transported to Erlanger. It didn't list any other options.
Yeah, well, it also says in there that we certainly don't want to be in the position to tell a family or an athlete where they have to go to seek care.
And you will have, how many trainers will you need to hire for our 17 high schools?
17.
Okay. You don't see any problem getting 17?
Absolutely. You know, we may not be able to get all 17, you know, here in the next few months, but that's the limiting factor for us is just finding good, solid, qualified people.
Right, and I appreciate that. That's what we all want. That's what we all want.
But that's our intent.
That was, when I read that, I thought the RFP, the electronic availability, I thought that was probably, you might not have enough trainers initially.
Yeah,
And
that's true, but we'll phase that in, and like I said, we won't be able to get all 17 schools covered day one, but until we get to full force, we'll have to probably share trainers and rotate until we get one for every school.
okay.
That's our goal.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Would any of the other entities like to make a comment on their availability and what they've been offering?
Certainly.
For the Center for Sports Medicine, am I correct?
Center for Sports Medicine Orthopedics. What we have in place currently is the need, if we get this proposal, is to hire, we currently have 8, and so we'll be hiring 6 more to get to the 14 for the high schools that represent TWSMA sports. What we do in servicing currently the public schools that the Center for Sports Medicine Bismarck has is we have a full-time trainer on site every day, 5 to 6 days a week. So we cover practices, games, tournaments, collaboratively together to cover the larger events also.
And so how many of our schools do you all, the 17 you all cover currently?
Between these organizations currently, the Center for Sports Medicine has 3 schools, Benchmark has 3, and then Memorial Hospital works collaboratively with ATI for school, so 7.
7. So, and are the other, Dr. Johnson, are the other 10 schools not covered now, or? You know?
They're not, so we've got several schools that are uncovered, leading over to more into which ones aren't, but yeah, there are some schools that aren't covered.
Yeah,
There are several schools that are currently not covered
Yeah.
under the current plan that we have.
And so the goal, and I'll just speak from anecdote, the goal would be to get every school covered. So, you know, I use as an example, I think early this school year, we were, I was out just stopping at a practice, and the particular school that I was at did not have a trainer. Fortunately, the school they were scrimmaging had a trainer. heat index rose above the level that's set by TWS of Lay, and the particular trainer for that school that they were scrimmaging, I think this was a private school here in town, was able to get practice stopped. I was sitting there and I said, well, I guess I'm a superintendent now, I better check on all these schools. And I called Lee, and just to make sure that, you know, schools were aware, and Lee had made sure all schools were aware, but, you know, not all schools had boots on the ground. And so just been a goal to get boots on the ground for every single school to make sure that we're covered and that we're, you know, doing what's right by students first, and then obviously adhering to TWS play policies.
We actually have one school in a playoff game this year that did not have a trainer. One of their players was injured. A trainer from the other side had to come over and administer care for one of our students.
Which is obviously a negative thing. Coach Galloway, you were on the committee, I believe, weren't you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Would you comment on what your feelings are on
Well,
this?
I was with the other people on, it seemed like, and I mentioned this at the time of the meeting, that, you know, I don't speak for the board, I certainly just asked to be on there, and I was glad to do that, but, you know, we do have tax dollars to look at, and the difference in price is a huge factor, but we also did talk about all the things that everybody was willing to provide, and it looked like that everybody's gonna be able to cover what we need, so that's what we did.
So, all entities would be covered, you think, Dr. McDade, by either group, to the difference in price, is that it?
Well, I think it was more than just difference in price. I think, looking at the overall plan, we just felt that Erlanger was going to be a better fit for the whole school system. And that's what I asked them to look at, not what's good for their school, but what's good for all of Hamilton County. They went away, came back, we met again. They looked over pros and cons of each plan, and it was decided Erlanger would be the best fit for the system at this time.
Thank you. Any other board members have any questions or comments?
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
If an athlete is injured and he doesn't, or his family doesn't have insurance coverage, are you guys gonna be able to take care of that athlete? Or are you gonna be able to take care of that athlete?
The system currently does cover athletes. We do have an insurance policy. It's not as probably good as a personal insurance policy, but it will pay some.
Okay, some.
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question is, or maybe a comment more than a question, is that if we have that athlete that's injured and he doesn't have insurance, aren't they going to end up at Erlanger anyway? Chances are.
Chances that could happen, yes, sir.
Okay. I think that's important.
Mr. Tessman?
Lee, I know this is a new road for us to go down. We have a huge system, and I would like for us to consider those that are currently providing service to allow them to continue in such a way. However, if it's advertised where it's all or nothing, you know, we have a hard decision to make. But I feel like, you know, those that had stepped up before and worked with us, and schools that were able to get out and work and raise money to get them some needed help with their athletics. I really hate to see us just walk away from them and not give them some consideration. I really do.
Well, I certainly understand that point. This committee was brought together to look at an RFP to send out that would be best for Hamilton County. That's the way we looked at it. We didn't look at it as who had done what or who was doing what. It was sent out, request for proposal, it came back, we went through them, and we only looked at what we thought would help or benefit all students in Hamilton County, not one from a certain school.
I don't know, just as a small note about RFPs, I think we have to be real careful that we don't, that we're true to the process. And so when we go through the request for proposal process for whatever it is, be it textbooks, be it technology, be it HR, something or other, or something, you know, we go through that process of bringing folks around, and obviously the process is in place for a reason. So just something that I think we'd be mindful of as we kind of go through it.
And I've worked with some of these trainers before. I have no issue with any of the trainers or programs in this room. I do not have a dog in this fight. It didn't matter to me who got it. I just wanted the best to get it. And at this time, that's what we thought. And folks, it's gonna be a 3-year contract, or we're gonna put in there a 30-day out clause. If we wanna end it, we can end it. It's not, you know, if it's not working, it's not working. And if, you know, Erlanger gets it, or CHI gets it, or Benchmark, whoever gets it, they're gonna know that ahead of time. You know, if it's not working, we're gonna end it in 30 days, and we're gonna do another RFP and go out and do this again. It's just important that every student athlete be covered in this. We can't say this school's got one, but this school can't have one, and that's what it's been.
Okay, Coach Galloway and then Ms. Jones.
I just wanted, Dave, since you brought that up, I want to say this is particularly difficult for me because the folks you're talking about have been extremely good to Lookout Valley when I worked there and worked with us in many ways, and we just overall looking at it, we're concerned about schools that didn't have anything, didn't have any money any way to raise any money. That's where that came from. But I appreciate you bringing that up, and us folks know that what I think of them. I've told them they've done a fabulous job.
Glad you were there, Joe.
I have a question. Under the information from CHI, they put the cost is there, but what were their services? Were they gonna be limited? I know like with Benchmark and Center for Sports Medicine, they were gonna have to collaborate with some other entities. I mean, they tell us that, but CHI just from what we got in the detail.
You know, as far as services go, I don't think you could go wrong with any of these providers. The services will be there. They'll step up and do what they have to do. I don't have an issue with any of the providers doing what needs to be done. Now, they didn't go in depth as some of them would have or should. I'm not gonna say should have, but maybe they didn't go into depth like they could have. But if they were to get the contract, they would step up and fulfill it and do what they needed to do. Every one of these providers are stand-up people.
And then the other, where it states that they would have to partner with other entities, are they like I know the lady from Center for Sports Medicine mentioned that they collaborate with Benchmark. So are those the entities and they just kind of intertwine in between, or?
Sure, so what we're looking at doing, you know, when we discovered this RFP, you know, we knew that we've been servicing public school systems here for 30 plus years. And we have reached out over those years in collaborative efforts with hospitals in the area and different therapy organizations such as Benchmark and even ATI to continue those services and expand those services. There was none of us 3 entities have the resources to do this single-handedly. So we wanted to come in with an effort with all 3 systems combined and present our proposals. So this is a collaborative effort between CHI Memorial, Benchmark, and the Center for Sports Medicine. And again, you know, we've been in situations where an area high school had an athletic trainer that got dropped about 2 weeks before 2-a-days started in football. That school contacted us. We reached out to Memorial at that point and said, you know, what can we all do together to help Red Bank High School have an athletic trainer? And that's when Memorial stepped in a few years ago to start their initiative in helping with athletic training services in the Hamilton County area. So we've been slowly trying to ease into more and more schools. You know, we do a lot. We have offered pre-sports participation physicals to all the area athletes. And for the money that we get from that, every penny was returned back to those schools based on the number of athletes that they had participated. We go out every summer and give braces and crutches and slings to ADs and coaches. We make sure that they have our physicians' phone numbers, so if they have an athlete that's injured, that they can be brought in and get seen. No matter the insurance, no matter the payer, that they can get brought in and get taken care of.
I know Benchmark has reached out to several of the area schools that did not have an athletic trainer and kind of provided a trainer on call as such. If you've got a player that's injured, give us a call. We'll send a trainer over there to assess the injury and help them out. So our proposal is 3 entities coming together for one proposal.
And sort of sum this up right now, the way I read it, Dr. McDade, is for all the schools, the $30 per athlete per Erlanger, or Dr. Johnson, I guess I should say, are we going to pay that ourselves as a system? Okay, and roughly what, 10,000 athletes?
Not that many. Yes, you want to talk about numbers a little bit?
Yeah, it's going to be 5,000 or less.
5,000 times $30 be, so we pay $150,000 roughly, and then so it'd be what, 175 or 85,000. Math is not my forte. I was an English history major, but a little bit more with the $35 each of the other groups. And you all would cover every single school as well. Is that correct? The conglomerate.
That's correct, sir.
I guess we need this in form of a motion, Ms. Ford?
This is
It's on the regular. Just discussion. We just have to vote on it at the board meeting. Does anyone have any questions for any of these folks? Are there any comments that Dr. Smith that you'd like to make? Sir, any more comments? Or?
Well, I appreciate the chance to come, and I think for us, it's it's about a relationship. This is what we do. It's to help you guys educate and take care of the kids, and that's what we want to do. This is not about, this is not really it is a big financial, concern, obviously, but it's about much more than that. And, we're in the business of education as well. We have a full, our staff, a lot of them are here tonight. Kevin Spiegel's here, Greg Gentry's here from Erlanger, just to show their support and how much this means to us. And, one other thing is that, when we talk about taking care of kids, it's not just about, orthopedics. It's not just about PT. It's about primary care. It's about all the female-related issues. It's about, mono, dehydration, access to care, whether it's in the community offices that we have, our children's emergency room, our neurosurgery group, the whole thing. So that's why I feel like, we've got a tremendous group with incredible expertise, not only in sports medicine, but in all the other affiliated disciplines that we need to take care of these kids.
So you do have some sports trainers on staff now. You provide 3 to Baylor, 3 to McCallie, 1 to Chattanooga Christian, and 1 to Notre Dame. Is that correct?
And with 3 of the high schools in North Georgia.
Right. Are you charging them $30?
Yes, it's all the same for every school. Our contract's the same for every school.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Would representatives of the other group like to make?
You got a hand back there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to also just echo Dr. Gilmore Smith, Dr. Dorsett, and the link between their professional focus as well as the Children's Hospital, and you tie everything up between orthopedics, the orthopedic pediatric specialist, neurosurgery, the Children's Hospital, the Children's Emergency Room, the whole concussion focus, and the research that's going on at the University of Tennessee. You start wrapping everything together, the comprehensive approach. I think it's a wonderful thing. I don't know if anybody's come to see the sports medicine clinic that was opened up. I know that there was a lot of press around when we opened it up, but these are for high school and junior high school age children to come in to also follow up with all of the specialists in one place. And it's kind of unique and best practice for athletic training programs. We do this, and then the whole system's focus is an integrated approach to sports medicine. And I think that's what we have to offer.
Thank you, sir. Would two representatives from the other group like to say something now?
Amy Ketron for Benchmark Physical Therapy. I am an athletic trainer, and that's how I'm trained in my career. And I've come into this role because Benchmark saw the vision and the opportunity for community service. And we currently cover 3 Hamilton County schools. And we've considered that, I just want to say first of all, a privilege to do. We in fact have a day that we give PTO back to our employees for their service in the community. We give them a whole extra day off to go out and serve. And several of those days have been in the schools to fix up the athletic training rooms, some which were in some disarray. We painted, we provided the paint, we provided the supplies. So from Benchmark's perspective, this is a community outreach, and we do it in a strong evidence-based approach practice. But our number one goal is to give back to the community, and that's what we've done for 7 years here.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we talk about comprehensive care. We know athletic training services and sports medicine outreach is the main topic of this. You know, the Center for Sports Medicine currently has 4 non-operative fellowship-trained sports medicine physicians. Fellowship trained means that they went through at least an additional 12 months of training outside of their residency program. We also have 5 orthopedic surgeons that are sports medicine fellowship trained. Memorial Hospital also has a fellowship trained non-operative sports medicine physician that's here with us this afternoon, Dr. Spears. We look at comprehensive approach. I think that is one of the reasons why partnering with Memorial has been such a gift to us in this collaborative effort. You know, Memorial Hospital brings to the table the primary care physicians, the pediatricians that are part of Memorial Healthcare Partners. So again, we can see that athlete, whether it's an orthopedic injury to a joint or muscle, but also in those situations where you have general health issues, illness, female health issues. You know, they have the physicians in their practice to take care of the athlete from head to toe also. You know, so we're not missing a beat when we talk about comprehensive care of the student athletes at all. You know, the Center for Sports Medicine, we talk about community outreach. We've been involved in the last couple of years of the Snack Pack event, which I'm sure most of you all are familiar with, furnishing snacks to a lot of area schools. We're also very involved with the Chattanooga Football Club's Youth Foundation and their Get Out program, which is in, I think, 17 of your elementary schools at this time. Again, we have, the schools we currently serve, we have not charged a fee at all. And when we have talked to them about possibly assisting us in offsetting a little bit of the cost, they just didn't know how they could come up with those funds. And so we've continued to offer that at no cost to those schools. What's difficult is being able to do that on an even larger scale. And again, that's why we went forth with a collaborative effort. I will say also, when we looked at our bid price, we were kind of under the impression that we would be looking at about 2,000 to 2,500 athletes. You know, when you double that and get around that 5,000 range, that definitely makes a big difference in, you know, in those dollars. And we had no idea. We were never told, you know, an estimate of the number of athletes at all. So we did the best with the information we were.
When did you get the opportunity for the RFP?
Becky,
Was everybody else?
They all got it at the same time, right?
Yeah, nobody was giving it.
Okay, that's fine. All of them got it at the same time. That's fine.
We received it. Benchmark never received it, nor did Memorial Hospital. So we informed them so that they could look online and get copies of it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. No other questions? Thank you so much. We'll be voting at the regular meeting.
Steve, let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said something I kind of picked up on. You said you gave those students braces and crutches and things like that free of charge. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, ma'am. Typically, we'll go out in the summertime and take ice coolers and And so we'll also donate crutches, knee braces, arm slings, ankle braces, things that coaches may assist athletes with until they can get in, or if an athlete's told you could use a lace-up ankle brace and get back on the playing field or the court, maybe they've got a stockpile of them and have one that fits so the athlete doesn't have to go out and try to purchase that. And we've done that for years.
Okay.
We appreciate the service, the medical service all of you have rendered. Every single one of you. Thank you so much. And we'll be voting at 3 for me. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a proposal from our attorneys that they would offer us a savings in a retainer agreement. Have we all had an opportunity to look at that?
Probably not, they just got it with their.
If you'll briefly look at this, and is Mr. Bennett here that we could ask him some questions? You want to come on up, Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Bennett, just give an overview.
Sure.
So everybody knows what.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Superintendent, members of the board. As most of y'all are aware, my longtime law partner, Mary DeCamp, and I started our own law firm on February 1st with the purpose of focusing all of our efforts on serving the public sector. With that, we have built our cost structure around what we think are the needs of school systems and local law enforcement agencies. And so we have really made a concerted effort to try to focus on providing the same value we've always provided at a much more cost-efficient manner. The proposal that we have presented to you, well, let me back up. Currently, y'all are on an hourly arrangement. Many years ago, y'all did an RFQ for legal services, and my former firm, Leitner, came in far, far below cost for everybody else, and was even more cost effective than if y'all were to look at going in-house. Since that time, though, what we have discovered, what Mary and I have discovered, is that you need to have a specialized firm that focuses explicitly on providing you with the unique needs that school systems have. So what we proposed is, instead of the hourly rate that we've done for many, many years, we go with a monthly retainer. And the retainer number that we have proposed, $20,000 a month, $240 a year, represents a cost savings from last year of $100,000. I am not aware of any vendors who've come to you and have said to you this year, we would like to save you $100,000 over what we paid you paid us last year. So we're the first. As compared to your budget, I think this represents a cost savings of, I defer to Christy here, who knows more about this than I do. I think this represents a cost savings against your budget of $120,000 per year. It's something that is important to me and Mary because, quite frankly, we view ourselves as partners with you in service to this community. One of our greatest privileges is coming alongside not just board members and central office administrators, but also principals and staff members. And knowing that we can spend that extra bit of time to invest in the end product matters to us. And knowing that it doesn't cost the taxpayers of Hamilton County an extra cent just for us to spend that extra time matters to us. So that's where we are, that's what we propose, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Questions, board? Mr. Tessman?
Mr. Bennett.
Yes, sir.
In becoming, what I feel is something that's long overdue is having someone that we almost can say is on our staff. You would continue being on call like 24 hours a day and on various things. And with the savings of $120,000, that's significant. How is it going to work different when we come to issues such as with our superintendent and various things? If you're going to work just for the board, and how is that how those issues going to be clarified.
Well, it's the same relationship.
Which is almost like a conflict, you know what I mean?
Well, I understand what you're saying. In any time that I work for the board, but realistically, I work alongside the folks who are in the trenches. The reality, though, is that's true with every lawyer in the state of Tennessee. We have an ethical duty to the board. Even theoretically, if I were in-house working directly for Dr. Johnson, my ethical duty is always to the board. That's what separates a lawyer from any other professional. We are always duty-bound to U9. And not really to U9, but the entity as a whole. So what's different? Well, I would hope nothing. From my perspective, each of you can still call me 24/7. If you can't get in touch with me, you call Mary. You have access to me, to Mary, and our staff. I would imagine that the cabinet still has the same access to me, filtered through Dr. McDade and Dr. Johnson. What this does is it keeps you from worrying about, oh, good gracious, if so-and-so is going to call Bennett, it's going to cost us an extra $1. It's taken care of. So my hope, Mr. Testerman, is that nothing changes. Now, what could happen is that 6 months from now, y'all are beating me up. and if that happens, then I'll approach the superintendent and I'll approach operations and say we might need a filter just because that could happen.
Just clarify, Mr. Testament, was that preempting? You're not firing me already, is he?
That's not what I heard, Superintendent.
Okay.
That's not what I heard.
We're going to soon go get your own lawyer for
That's
that.
what I started to say.
I mean, you don't have to, but.
This is not hypothetical, you understand.
I don't know what Ms. Thurman meant, but.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Smith, this would be reviewed on an annual basis?
Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, Mr. Highlander, Dr. Highlander. In point of fact, any attorney serves at the pleasure of the board. So at any point in time, the board can revisit this. Mary and I have talked about this, and we would like to make a commitment to you that this cost structure is going to remain in place for 2 years. So essentially what I've just done is I've offered to cut the compensation that you pay to Leitner by $100,000, and I'll stick to that for 2 years.
Ms. Thurman.
Yeah, okay, and just for clarification for those in the audience that may not understand, if we hired an in-house attorney, we would have to pay your insurance, all your benefits, your retirement, all that, so you're taking care of all that.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're clear on that part, so what we pay you is just strictly for.
That's it. And Ms. Thurman, you were on the board when the I can't remember who else was on the board, but I know that you were on the board.
Moses came.
I was right.
Well, one of the things that was examined, actually by the Times Free Press several years ago, was a comparison between the legal fees of the board versus the county versus the other municipalities. And the best comparator really is county government. Your budget is twice that of county government, roughly. You have twice as many employees as county government, roughly. County government's legal budget is over $1 million. Your legal budget this year was about $360,000. So your legal budget is less than a third of theirs with twice the employees. They have 3 in-house attorneys and support staff. What I'm proposing is that you cut that from a third of their legal budget to about a quarter of their legal budget. Now, why am I doing that? It's because I live in this community and I love what I do, plain and simple.
And I have your cell phone number, which is always nice.
And you use it.
That will change it, cell number.
Would it be, would you be keeping count of your hours that would have been billable otherwise?
Yes, sir.
I think that would be good for us to look at and
Sure.
see what it would have cost us. Assuming we go with this plan,
Sure.
what would it cost us had we gone by the hourly process?
And internally, I need to do that anyway, just so that I can, in 2 years, if we revisit this, I need to know. Also, that's the easiest way for me to keep track of, frankly, of budding issues. If I see a lot of calls from one part of the administration, then I can make some discussions with the leadership and say, you may need some more PD over here in this part. It's a way for me to track what's going on.
And you did exclude exceptional ed cases for obvious reasons for educators.
Well,
I know that.
Partially. And thank you for pointing that out, Dr. Highlander. If it's an exceptional ed case that goes to due process, meaning it actually goes to litigation, that is separate because that can be incredibly intensive, both in terms of time and expert costs. However, this retainer proposal is inclusive of special ed costs. If you would need me to go to an IEP meeting, that's covered. If you need me to go to special ed mediation with the state, that's covered. It's only if we find ourselves in a formal due process complaint that we would pop out of that and look at the hourly arrangement. And the hourly arrangement is the same that we have now, which again is still less than market. I believe that Mr. Smith has a question.
Mr. Smith, sorry, didn't see you there, sir.
When you invoice us, when we get that monthly invoice, does it break, I know it's got the total number of hours and the cost, of course, but does it break down what those hours represent? In other words, what you're working on, what the activity is. So it's a detailed kind of thing.
It's an extremely detailed statement. I break things down to the 10th of the hour.
Okay.
It's essentially a diary of how I spent the month.
Okay. And I would assume, Mr. Chairman, as a board member, we have a right to look at those from time to time if we wish.
Of course.
The other thing, maybe needs to become more my responsibility than yours, but I'd sure like to have more updates, more frequent updates with regard to pending cases or litigation you may be working on. And maybe I need to be calling you instead of waiting for you to call me, but it seems like we don't get a lot of information.
He has, I'll say Mr. Smith, he has gone through Dr. Johnson and myself, kept us pretty well informed. Okay. And if there's something that needs to be brought to the whole board, then Dr. Johnson and I, one will call it. If we see, and actually Mr. Bennett will recommend that we bring the whole board together when needed. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, sir. And what I also try to do is when there is something that you need to know about, I send out, as you may have found, very detailed, thorough emails that bore many people to tears. And Dr. Highlander shaking his head no, but I know that he likes to read late at night. If I ever send an email that you think warrants more follow-up, then by all means, let me know, and I'll be happy to meet with you one-on-one. Or if any one board member wants to have an executive session to discuss stuff, we certainly can. What I try to do is be mindful of your time, because theoretically you're a part-time board and you're compensated as such, but realistically, y'all are in the schools an awful lot. But if you, Mr. Smith, or if anyone else wants to meet with me for a cup of coffee and talk about something, I'm at your disposal.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions, Dr. Johnson? Do you have any comments or questions? Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Appreciate it very much. Dr. Johnson and Ms. Jordan will talk to us about our budget.
Sure. Christian, we'll get down. It's our last work session on the budget, and one new item will reflect here tonight. We'll see. I'm not going to tell Lee to move his head. Lee, slide over and stay here the entire meeting tonight. Did you bet him? We'll start with school. With school board goals. You all have established goals. You know what they are: safe and clean, orderly environment, high standards of accountability, effective and qualified teachers, character development, education, and value and diversity, and parent involvement, and then obviously clear and open lines of communication. You know, we had 23 community meetings, 1,300 community members. You've seen this data before, 3,000 data points really collected throughout the community and very helpful. And with that, they had 5 key areas of focus: technology, community schools, counselors, art teachers, and then looking at STEM programming as well. And so these are kind of 5 big areas that we've grouped our budget into, and obviously in our strategic framework: accelerate student achievement, future-ready students, great teachers and great leaders, an engaged community, and efficient and effective operations. Some real key points within this budget, and we'll just go through again. All documents have been online throughout the few months that we've been going through this process. All presentations, line item detail, all there. Mentioned the community listening. This budget is $1 million below the base from last year to this year. And then most importantly, I know we're presenting a balanced budget, and you see the commitments in the areas that are there. So you know the transparency piece, $1 million below the base. You see that includes the step increases and the retirement rate increase as well. The retirement rate increase is unavoidable. Every system in the state has to deal with and address that. And you see the preliminary revenue projection of $385 million there. This is the area that we want to point out as an adjustment. And so what we'd like to propose in this final presentation is that we shift future-ready students from 2.7 million, which it was before, to 2.45, and take the additional 250,000 and appropriate it to efficient and effective operations in the way of additional resources for school resource officers, and have had some conversation with the sheriff, and have asked that all monies that we appropriate in this way be aligned to people and to benefits, and so salaries and benefits is where that $500,000 would go. So you see it again reflected here: $500,000 additional for SRO support within this budget cycle. $1.9 million is appropriated for safety, security, and support. So that is the only adjustment from the last budget presentation that you had, and this one. We suspect that with salary and benefits, we could see an additional 6 to 8 additional positions through school resource officers. And candidly, we challenge our other areas, municipalities, and the community as a whole to come alongside us as we work towards having every school covered. We see that as important, and we think it's important that we as a district and you all as a board, we make that initial commitment, and making it a recurring item in our budget is something that we haven't done before, that obviously we're doing. Just to give some reminders, 81% of our budget is people, and 93% of those people are school-based folks. See the line item detail of the breakdown. Again, not many changes here, and I'm sorry, I want to point you to one of the things we talked about is, beginning to plan for the future. So this steps into the future some and begins to look at some areas that we need to consider going forward as we continue to work. So in looking 3 years out, as we work towards adding art teachers this year and adding ESL teachers and adding guidance counselors, the numbers that you see reflected there would get us to within the ratios that are recommended by the state. And so as we continue to look at, going forward, this kind of is some future planning areas that we want you to be mindful of. As a reminder, we've got $420,000 appropriated in each of those areas in this budget cycle. But as we go forward, those are considerations that we need to have. Under great teachers and great leaders, again, considerations under additional resources for schools in the way of a block grant. That's recurring. We'd love to see that. We'd love to see instructional coaches in all of our elementary schools. Elementary is the foundation. Literacy is critical, in making sure that our students are great readers and writers and able to articulate what they read and write is of extreme importance and foundational for them going forward. So you see that number reflected there. Again, professional learning is important, as well as leadership development. And so these are suggested commitments as we look 3 years out at potential projections under great teachers and great leaders. On our future-ready students, we'd love to see our half-time college advisors in our high schools become full-time. And so something to consider as we go forward, and then continuing to support technology integration through devices and infrastructure support. You can see some numbers there as we consider 3 years out and plan for the long term. Under engaged community, again, under the expansion of communities, schools, and bringing our community in, as well as the way in which we communicate out to get them in. You can see some commitments there for consideration again, just as we start to think kind of 3 years out. And then under efficient, effective operations, as Christy did a great job, and then we'll spend the rest of the time just kind of talking through whatever questions you have about budget. But considerations have to be made for operations, and so we appreciate our taxpayers and our county commission and our mayor for making a commitment to help us build buildings. But we know we have to operate those buildings, and so as we look at East Hamilton Middle, obviously we anticipate some teachers from the middle high currently being able to be leveraged to support that school, but no, there'll be needs, and so you can see an operational cost again as we prepare and look forward to what could be needed to bring these schools online. Howard Middle, significant growth in the downtown community, District 4, and as we bring that school back online with East Lake Academy, really over capacity. Already we know that this was and is a need, and so as we look at bringing this school online, Justin and his team, and obviously through the millage rate being held, it allows us to bring that school back, but we are going to have to operate it. So as we look forward, these are some considerations that need to be taken into consideration. And then just from the standpoint of, and I may have missed Snow Hill down there at the bottom as well, to go back and make sure I talk about Snow Hill and the addition. Districts 4, 7, and 9, as we talked about in our building plan, are areas in which we see the growth, and obviously with the addition at Snow Hill, we know that we'll need instructional support there, and we'll something to keep in mind. And then just operational costs from a startup standpoint, as Christy kind of looked back over the years at what it's cost us, be it things as simple as
copiers,
trash cans, it's just the day-to-day stuff to start up a school that isn't always included in the cost. This gets us these campuses started up. So again, this is, and you can see just future budget cost estimates, just 3-year projection. What we'll do over the course of the next couple of weeks is get even a little more granular with this and do an 18-19, a 19-20, and a 20-21, so that you can kind of see these costs broken down over 3 years for consideration. And just again, these are things we will share kind of going forward. So kind of wrapping up, for opening up for questions as we go.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Test.
Looking at your future budget priorities, do not forget that East Ridge Elementary School, when we built it, it was full to capacity next year. The thing that bothers me about that is we lost a computer room and an art room. They're gone and probably never come back. Spring Creek Elementary is full to capacity. We've got to, I know we're in the process of building these, but we have got to convey to our funding bodies, to our community, that we are growing, and what we're doing is still not enough. And I hate it for parents that call me and they're upset because their school's supposed to have an art class, supposed to have a computer lab, it's supposed to have a stage. They can't do all this thing. I think we should look at some ways too, and I hope that you will. I've had community people to come to me. They would like very much to see if there's any way that if there's space, and they have looked, for them to be involved in another school. It's not a lot of kids, it's about 25, 28 kids. And I hope that you'll be sensitive, and that we will be sensitive to communities that want to go to another school that is within walking distance of their homes, that would give them an opportunity to get out of an overcrowded school.
Yeah, that's a great point. And one thing I missed pointing out down here, this bottom line, and find print 2 key areas that this number doesn't include, or estimates for kind of long-term capital as well as transportation. It's something we talked about in the last meeting. We're going to have to big areas that we have to look at. And within that long-term plan, obviously looking at, to your point, Spring Creek and East Ridge, we know we had growth there and actually grappling with that this past building plan. And honestly, it was next on the list. If we had more money to put off, it would have gotten addition as well because of the growth.
I had another question. It was back to the area of acceleration of students. Are we saying that we're going to give kids an opportunity to do similar to what they're doing right now in collegiate school, where they can move ahead, get extra credits, and possibly graduate with an associate degree? Or are we talking about giving kids an opportunity to, let's say, students behind a credit or two, give them a possibility of catching those up in the summer, or in some other way where they might have an independent study to get ahead? Are we doing those type things for them?
Mr. Testament, we're doing both of those things currently. In our Title I budget, we have set aside a couple of options for kids, especially to catch up credits. Been doing it for a number of years. It's in the plan moving forward this summer for kids to be able to come to Title I schools to catch up credits. We purchased Edgenuity, which we still have in place, which is another way for kids to recover credit, repair or recover credit. So the greatest certain point, they can do a little bit of work to repair it to get it to a 70 or to recover the credit. So we've got a couple things on that end of the spectrum, and then on the other end, of course, through the Future Ready Institutes and with the new requirements for us to provide early post-secondary opportunities to every student, we're continuing to look at those options for students across county to access AP, dual enrollment, statewide dual credit, other options such as that.
Is that what you're saying, you're accelerating student achievement? Is that part of that program, or are we talking about something else for elementary?
So
I'd like just some clarification of what you mean by
show me what page you're talking
about.
about.
On page 5, right here. Accelerating student achievement.
So most definitely. So some of that will go towards curriculum resources for teachers. A big chunk of it will. A lot of it will go towards technology, specifically for teachers. We are hopeful this year to bring on between somewhere about 7,000 to 9,000 additional devices for students. And so I think continuously throughout the course of the next year, we want to look at more dual enrollment, dual credit opportunities, as well as AP coursework. We have several schools that haven't had AP coursework that will have AP courses this year or this upcoming year. I believe Howard and Brainerd, Jill, Howard and Brainerd will have AP courses this year. Have teachers going to training. Most definitely, he's been working closely with him on that as well. So, across the district, we want students, in particular, when you start talking about secondary, to really have those opportunities. And so when you look at a collegiate high, a student graduating with an associate's degree, we want our students to, whether it's an associate's degree or certification, we want them to be as prepared as possible. And some of them, and just to be real clear, some students, and I think it's sometimes a misnomer, we're not trying to prepare our students for technical school, but we're not trying to prepare our students for college. We're trying to prepare students for what's best for them. And so we're trying to make sure that we tailor what we need based on what they need. And so that's what we're really working at doing across the system.
Am I hearing you say you're ready to do a dual path diploma?
I will say that we have got to have conversation, and we started the conversation about 2 months ago. I know that it's a dual path diploma, but we've got to have very intentional conversation, probably through work sessions, about our diploma structure.
Well, I think that would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Great comments. Any other questions? I've got a couple of comments. One, Dr. Johnson, just throwing this out, so should we choose the option that Mr. Bennett and Ms. DeCamp have offered, saving was it 100 or 120,000? 120,000. That would go a long way toward paying for athletic trainers, whichever group we choose. Correct?
Or buildings.
Or
whatever we decide.
whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I see.
They can be used for whatever.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at paying for trainers, but that's a cost we're gonna have to incur.
There was one note here, in-school suspension monitor. I see one listed here for East Hamilton Middle School and a projection, and then on another Howard Middle, a projection for an in-school suspension monitor. Lee, do all schools have in-school suspension now? We know.
Most middle school do according to Dr. Roberts.
Most middle schools do. What about high schools?
So some of those positions across schools have been used in different ways. So principals have had the discretion to take them and use them as an interventionist or something of that nature. But there was a FTE, a classified FTE for those positions in middle schools and high schools.
I've had some people ask me why we don't have
Let me correct that. In middle schools. Now high schools, people have taken stuff to create an ISS monitor, but at the middle schools, there's an FTE for classified ISS monitors. Does that make sense?
At high school, they're having to kind of
right
cobble the money together to do it themselves. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I think that's a problem.
And may I say, we sometimes end up sticking them in unbelievable places like East Ridge High School. We put them in an old shower room, but works effectively. The lady's been doing it. She's been doing it for a long time, and she's very good. They need to be in every school for sure.
Thank you. Are other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Johnson.
Ms. Fine. So, the question about the in-school suspension monitors. So, if you said at the end that you didn't think that was right or a good idea. So, is your recommendation that we should probably look to add those in every school? Like, what is the solution instead of just saying it's not right?
Well, okay, but that's why I was wanting to get clarification, because I have had some parents ask why we didn't have in-school suspension at the high school level to keep, some of the other punishment that they're having to render because of in-school suspension. I would just like to use maybe some money to put monitors in the high schools. And they didn't have to cobble money together from different areas to have an in-school suspension monitor. I would like to see us do that.
Dr. Robertson?
There's the flexibility within the staffing to make those decisions. It's just not part of the traditional. We had one at Red Bank, but I had to give something else up to get there. So, and I can find the numbers for you to find how many of the high schools already have some position like that in place. I'm almost 95% sure Saudi Daisy has something in place for ISS.
It wasn't Saudi Daisy that asked me about this.
But it would be nice not to have to give something up.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. In some of the schools, those individuals that serve as behavior interventionists, do they also do the ISS? Is that a dual role or no?
That's where people have the flexibility. I mean, do you want a behavior specialist or do you want an ISS monitor? I think that.
Well, they probably in ISS because they have their behaviors, Justin.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. That's where we talk about giving principals autonomy.
Right.
Like that's where principals are making decisions. Do you want a behavior specialist or would you rather have an ISS monitor?
Oh no, I just didn't know if maybe they were kind of dueling the roles. That just was a question. Okay.
Dr. Johnson, I've got a question for you. I'm 99% sure I know the answer. Several of my constituents have a misconception, and I told them that, but I'd like them to hear it from you. Several people said, I am very disappointed that your superintendent is seeking a raise with the money that we got for school buildings.
Personally seeking a raise.
Pardon me?
Personally seeking a raise.
No, not for you, but for the teachers, a raise. And I assured them that money is bond money. That money is totally dedicated to the buildings. But I would like for my constituents and maybe some countywide to hear it from you. Am I correct, sir?
Yes, it is bond money. And so we hadn't touched, obviously, the building plan is the building plan. And all that's going to be built based on the bond. And the money for any employee raise is based on revenue and efficiencies, based on what we have, state projections, and so correct, we wouldn't take anything. I was joking about, their testament running me out, in 9 months. If we took Harrison or Snow Hill off the board, you might as well go and get the moving truck, at the front door. So we wouldn't at all, go down, we can't by legally, right, correct me if I'm wrong, legally, we couldn't do that, and, just from the standpoint of how we operate, we wouldn't do that at all.
And I'm sure of them that, but I wanted them to hear from you. Ms. Thurman?
Yes, in this budget, speaking of and I don't like to refer to it as a teacher raise because the teachers are not the only people getting a raise. They just call it that because it sounds worse when you say you're not for it. It's, oh, for teachers. It's not just teachers, everybody gets a raise, including the administration. But I will not be voting for this budget because this $5 million, the newfound money that we came into, that's where the raise is coming from. I would much prefer that money go to schools in blocks so that parents didn't have to pay so many fees, that schools could do a lot of things in their school building they want, or maybe they want to do something in their school that maybe they don't have any other way to fund it. Give the principals the money and just let them decide what to do with it. And also our deferred maintenance. I mean, when you put it in a raise, it's gone every year from here on out. I mean, if you put it in the maintenance, deferred maintenance, it's $5 million this year, and $5 million next year, and $5 million the next year. It's not just $5 million; it's $5 million every year, till we can get some of our deferred maintenance caught up, some of our athletic facilities, some other things that we need. So that's my reasoning on that. I just don't like adding these reoccurring costs every time when we, if I get a raise at work and I have bills due, I don't go out and plan a vacation. I pay my bills first, and this is a bill we've had for a long time. And maintenance is always the place we've always managed to take money out of whenever we needed something, and it's time we play catch up with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that very much.
I will just say one thing, and I will say, just coming here new, I'm extremely impressed by what this board and finance and operations has done in regards to maintenance. And I would say that there are very few school systems in the state that have contributed. It's not a pat on the back or anything, but I would venture to say there are very few school systems in the state of Tennessee that have taken $24.5 million of savings, essentially, and put it into buildings. And that's what this system's done over the course of the last 12 to 16 months, with the $15 million in the building plan and the $9.5 million in HVACs and roofs that you all approved last year. So, at some point, I do concur that, you obviously want to keep your buildings up, but at some point, you have to advance from the standpoint of improving student achievement and from the standpoint of paying your people. So, our teachers and our administrators and our support staff are key to our success, and so we have to find that healthy balance. I will also add, and I'll ask Christy to speak to this, we don't yet have our projections specifically, but we know the governor is most likely proposing funds or salary increase. I think I haven't been able to keep up with the news headlines today, but based on BP, there's some by law stuff that we have to do that just puts us in a position, regardless, where we have to. It's a focus, from the state all the way down. So, you want to speak to the law part a little bit?
Yes, sir. You're correct that it is part of Tennessee Code. How if salary funds come through the BEP, that every school system must use those particular funds for funding a salary, for funding salary increases, unless you are above the state average, and then the only other thing you can spend them on is benefits. So that's part of, and I could give you the Tennessee Code if you would like.
What percentage of what we got is in that?
This year, the governor's proposal has, well, see, we don't have our BEP yet, so it's really hard for me to totally answer that question, but it looks like there's 2% in there, but I'm not sure yet, because we don't have that. We don't have the information from the state. I know we usually get it by mid-April, but it is not here yet.
Well,
So based on that, Rhonda?
Well, based on that, I mean, this is not my first rodeo, as you know. So I've been hearing this, and I've always wondered where the accountability piece comes in. You know, we always give raises to increase student achievement, and some of the schools are continuing to fail, and we give more money to consultants, and everybody's going to do much better, and it never changes. And we had started the middle schools for a new society, and that was going to make all the difference in the world. It didn't make one bit of difference, and now we're starting a new initiative in the middle schools, and we'll see how that works out. And then after, they say, well, it takes 5 years to see a difference. Well, in 5 years, we have other people in the administration, and then your new school board members, and they all think it's new, when it's really not new. And I know some of the young people that roll their eyes and think, oh, she's just a crotchety old lady. Well, this old crotchety old lady sing a lot. And I'm just, you know, I just want to, at some point, somebody's going to have to be accountable, and like I say, I've been waiting these 5 years for almost 15 years now. Well, Rhonda, it takes 5 years to see a difference. Well, now, Rhonda, we're starting this, it's going to take 5 years to see a difference. And so far, it's been about 13 years now. I haven't seen much of a difference. But like I say, I just want to see some accountability. I mean, I've heard it all. You know, we have to pay the teachers more so the students can learn more, and the students don't learn more. We have to pay teachers more again so they learn more. And you know, I just want to know who's going to have to be accountable, because this board certainly don't hold people accountable.
Thank you, ma'am. I like, real quickly, I'd like to commend Dr. McDade for all his work, and we mentioned something about athletics. He has done a great job on fiscal plans and work with us, and I appreciate that. And Dr. Johnson and Christy for their work on this finance. It's just been great. Anything else before we take a quick adjournment to the regular meeting?
I have a question for Christy.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Johnson.
With the money that the governor is mandating that's allocated for salaries, is that going to cover our entire teacher population? I know we often struggle with the fact that our BEP does not align with the number of people that we actually employ. So with that money, possibly, because I know we don't know the amount, but would that provide that? Because I know last year that was the issue when he spent the money, we didn't have enough to give the total amount. So to give it across the board, we had to do a lower percentage. So I'm trying to figure out possibly what that looks like. And I'm asking that so that the public understands that we employ more teachers in our system than the state tells us or provides us funding for in the money that we get. And I know, I mean, it's a lot, and everybody says they've been here before, and you know, and I know there's a level of accountability with things, but for some of the board members, we haven't been here as long, so our level of accountability is a bit different because we're newer to the board. So I think one thing we are accountable for is making sure people understand what that looks like and don't glaze over that with other stuff.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am, you are correct. When the governor puts a percentage raise, he's raising the BEP component for salaries. The BEP component for salaries is not what any school system actually pays. So you're really hit in two ways. You're hit with the actual salary that is paid by the systems, and you're also hit with, we're not the only school system. Every school system in the state has more teachers than the BEP allocates. So you're really hit two ways. So no, it does not cover it.
It's impossible to operate under the BEP alone.
Just one quick point of clarification. Obviously, we have a conference around salaries, so anything that's there would be based on having conference and come to agreement.
That's a good point, Dr. Johnson. Ms. Johnson,
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I guess when you have any kind of body that develops a budget, and there's got to be give and take, and there's some couple of things in here that I didn't get my way, but I've really appreciated getting the information, and anybody got the information. So I appreciate that. I've also really appreciated the time that Christy has spent with me individually, helping me to understand things. And in fact, my final comment, the document that we just reviewed about the projections and what's coming down the pike, and I think that's valuable for the public to know that we're doing all we can do, but we still got a lot of needs, and we're gonna have needs, and so, I've just been appreciative of the process, and even though I didn't get everything I wanted, I'm certainly gonna support it, but.
Thank you. So we will be discussing the safety issue that we've been at the three board meetings. So, Ms. Thurman, you have a comment?
I think my comments were just, I just want to emphasize the fact that money is not the answer. I mean, I agree about educating children, and I think we proved that more money in all these different areas is not the answer. That we need to be looking at other avenues that are the answer. And then Joe, you were talking about the projections. Okay, we have millions of dollars of projections that we're going to need. Like I say, when you manage recurring expenses, you know, you might want to spend $5 million and hold that $5 million over to cover some of the expenses we see coming down the pipe. That's my thought process.
Thank you, ma'am. We are on the time crunch here, so we will take a very brief and reconvene immediately at 5:30. Thank you.
That's good idea.